Good afternoon, David. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Jason. I'm thrilled like crazy to be on this podcast with
I
you.
know
Been looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome.
it is going to be awesome. I'm over here laughing, and I'm looking at David on Zoom, and I'm laughing too. He's laughing too because we just had a hilarious exchange that I'm just going to out myself on. I said like, "Hey, good morning, David." And I'm like, he's like, "No, I'm in Georgia," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'd like to be." Why does it matter whether it's good morning or good afternoon to the audience? Like nobody knows when we're recording this because it's a podcast. It's not like we're on live TV here. So we're both laughing because it's like, it doesn't matter, but for whatever reason, I want to be
It
accurate.
got
So
funny. It got funny.
it got funny. So David and I we're both cracking. I'm cracking myself up, but I think David's going, this guy's a lunatic. So, yeah, so we're recording this on Monday, April 19th. And David, we're going to find out where you are in a couple of minutes. I'm obviously in the great state of New York. And with that, my friend, let's go ahead and kick it off. So love if you would introduce yourself to the audience, just a little bit about you and where you are in Eastern Standard Time today.
Yes, I'm in Eastern Standard. So great to talk with you in ED time. And I had
EDT.
to do a little research. Yeah, EDT. That's your problem. So we won't go there. All right. Nonprofit leaders struggle to get the confidence and the money they need. And I help them get their confidence and the money that they need. That's my whole life. I've been doing this since 2018. I launched out. I risked to step out of the boat. What I have done all my life is I've been a Christian pastor. And
Mm-hmm.
so 3 years ago, I stepped out of the boat and I launched into the wild blue yonder, and I entered the marketplace, and I hung up my shingle and I help nonprofits get the confidence and the money that they need.
Very cool. All right, David. So we're going to dig into what you do now, and later in the show, I also definitely want to ask you about your life as a pastor because you're only the second pastor I've had on, and the first one I've had on the show I had on last week. She is a female pastor in Illinois, and I haven't released her episode either. So you two will be my first two. I don't know if you call them people of the cloth or whatever the terminology you like to use, but I'm really excited to dig in on that and you and find out more about what that experience was like for you because it's something I know you did for a long time. So,
Sure, sure.
all right, so let's get right into it, David. First question for you: what is something that you nerd out about?
Well, obviously, I've given my life to fundraising. I nerd out about fundraising. What makes it easy for some people? What makes it hard for others? I read about it. I listen to podcasts. I pay for classes. I attend conferences. I look for strategies. I study why it's hard and I study why it's easy. And I nerd out about fundraising. I don't know.
Wow.
I'm not in love with money, but I'm telling you, I like it pretty good. And I just came to an understanding early on in my childhood. Not much happens for the good in this world without some good dollars behind it. And I used
Yeah.
to get free gifts and I used to pick out my cereal box in the grocery aisle and I always picked out some quote, free gift. And my mom would always tell me, and it made me so angry. She'd say, that's not a free gift. Yes, it is. Look, it says it's free.
Free.
And what she was trying to get me to understand was, I'm paying for your little free toy when I pay for it. So I've always had I've just been enamored with why is there more money? Why do some people have more money than they ever could need to live? And then another part of the world doesn't have enough. And how does that fit into an overall plan? I'm a person of faith and I just come to believe that that's kind of the way it was ordained. Really, those of us who have a lot, we're also called to give a lot. And
Yep.
now I give my life to serving people and I help them to give. I'm actually serving them by
Yeah.
giving them opportunities to give. And it's the way I see it. So I'm a nerd about fundraising. I'm a nerd about understanding it. I'm a nerd. I love to talk it. You and I want to get together and just talk about something fun and exciting. Let's talk fundraising. I love it. Like
Oh
I'm
my
a
God.
nerd. I'm a nerd. I
That's
am. You believe
that's
that?
oh I think it's apparent to myself and to the audience that you are literally a nerd about fundraising. And I mean that in the best way, David. That's so funny. It's I'm also laughing because I'm a nerd about sales. So I came from, I was in sales for a long time, and as an entrepreneur, we're always selling ourselves in some way. Like people are like, oh, I don't want to do sales anymore. I'm like, you're lying to yourself. Like, yeah, I'm selling a service I'm selling a service. You're selling a service. Anybody who's almost everybody's in sales in some way. The thing that I find so interesting is I love sales and I know almost nothing about fundraising. And the thing that struck me as you talked about all this, that I don't really want to know anything about it other than what you know. Like it's like I'm curious about it, but I don't want to be a fundraiser. It does not sound like something I would enjoy.
Of course. I think that has to do with why you were put here on the earth. You know, it was right. Martin Luther King said, if you've been put here to be a street sweeper, you should be a street sweeper extraordinaire.
Right.
Why would there be a better street sweeper on the planet than you if that's why you're put here to do it? So for you, sales is why you were born, Jason. It's why you exist. And for me, I was born to do what I'm doing. I'm convinced of that. It's why I was put here. It's a very necessary thing. I'm very needed. It's provided a good income for me and a good career. But honestly, when I don't know what we are put here to do. It's my philosophy of living.
Yeah.
When we do what we were put here to do, it's fun like crazy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to have to teach people how to do sales. I wouldn't want to have to be a swimming coach. I couldn't be a football coach. There are 1,000 things, a billion things I could never do. But you set me free to do what I was put here to do. It's fun like crazy. This goes back to that little saying that says, if you can, heard it in high school, and I do believe it.
Yeah.
If you can do what you love doing, if you can get a job doing what you really love and are passionate about, you'll never have to work again a day for the rest of your life.
Totally.
I believe that. I really do believe that.
I'm glad you brought this up. Actually, there's a book that I'm literally reading right now. It's called The Big Leap. Have you heard of it?
I have, and I want to read that.
It's fantastic. You should read it, David. It's really good. And this is divine intervention. This morning on the drive to drop my daughter off at school, I was listening to the book, and the premise of the book is that we have 4 zones. We have our zone of incompetence. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We have our zone of, I believe he calls it comfortability. We have our zone of excellence, and then we have our zone of genius.
Wow.
And generally, we know what we do with our zone of incompetence. We either pay somebody else or we struggle through it. These are the like, so for me, just like an example of my zone of incompetence is pulling together all the paperwork necessary to submit our income taxes to our accountant. I can kind of weasel my way through it, but I despise it. Like I would procrastinate. And I say this when I found out that the IRS had pushed out the filing deadline by a month, I was so happy. I was like, yes, because it means we procrastinate. Your zone of comfortability is like the things that you just, they're easy for you. You know how to do it. Your zone of excellence is the thing that you do really well. And his philosophy is, when you stay in your zone of excellence, you actually are not doing what you should be doing. Your zone of genius is where you'll never work a day in your life. And so what I hear, and I say all this to relate to you, David, what I hear for you, the fundraising stuff is actually your zone of genius. What makes it fun, higher impact, you make more money, you have more joy, and you love what you do. And then you just never get to work a day in your life. And just to wrap on this, because I'm not going to promote the Big Leap book on your episode the whole time, but I will recommend it to you and to the audience.
I'm going to read it.
It's great. One of the things that we are notorious, or we are reliable to do as humans, is as we move through levels, especially from our zone of excellence to our zone of genius, he calls them upper limit problems. And your upper limit problem is the thing that your ego and your psyche puts in the way of you actually getting into your zone of genius. So if you look at this, I'll just use this as an example. He used Bill Clinton as an example. When he, when he was on his second term and I believe it was his second term, the whole Monica Lewinsky thing happened. He had, I believe, one of the all-time best public ratings of a president of all time at that point, or very close. Incredible. He was very successful. He'd won a second term. Mm-hmm. He was doing great work. The economy was flying, all these things. And he said, like, that's a perfect example of an upper limit problem that we consciously or subconsciously put in our way because his zone of excellence is being president. His zone of genius could have been what would have been possible if he never would have been impeached. What would have been possible, like staying as a reputation. So we could talk about this for the next. You could tell him.
Wow,
You can tell I nerd out about this
stuff.
About. And this is also a coaching thing, but we'll have to catch up again. We'll have to catch up again after you read the book, because I definitely want to nerd out about this video.
I'm going to read the book, and
awesome.
I'll probably be like you preaching it. I'll be I'll be an evangelist. Yeah.
Well, that's probably another thing that's in your zone of genius. All right. So David, next question for you. We're going to talk a little bit about your comfort zone. And I define your comfort zone as that it's kind of the thing I just mentioned about your comfortability, the thing that you're good at, the thing that's easy for you, the thing that is the thing that you're reliable to easily do or want to do, and it doesn't stretch you or stress you out. So what's something that is inside of your comfort zone that might be outside of somebody else's?
Something that I've learned is it's become so natural and easy for me that I talk to leaders all the time, and it is a horrible problem, and it causes them many problems. Mm-hmm. And that is what we call confrontation.
I've heard of that before.
I redefine confrontation as clarification, and it is easy as pie for me, but that is one thing that people usually you get a job somewhere as a clerk, you move up the line until you're in leadership, and you never learn these leadership skills. And I meet people constantly who are in leadership level positions, and they never learn the skill or the power of just confrontation.
Yeah.
And of course, I used to be horrible at that. I avoided confrontation. I would do anything to keep from having that confronting conversation. Yeah. I would do anything. And it hurt me. It hurt me with a lot of relationships. It hurt me. You let things go way too long. But I just studied it. I studied leadership. I studied confrontation. And when I changed it around in my mind from confrontation to clarification, it doesn't bother me at all. As a matter of fact, the sooner I clarify something with you, the sooner we can come to a resolution. We can get an answer. The sooner that thing will be a problem. And so I hear a lot of leaders say, if I could do what I do and not have to confront people, I would love it. And I just think, goodness gracious, what we call confrontation, or what I now redefine as clarification, it's how we grow. It's how we learn. It's one of the greatest growth experiences, especially in relationships and in team building, that there are. If you avoid confrontation, you got junk growing that ought not, it's just, you got a mess. And really it's because of you. And I'm fond of saying, if you could kick the person most responsible for your failures and your problem as hard as you could in the backside, if you could kick that person, dude, you wouldn't be able to sit down for a week.
I had a feeling that was going to be the punchline there, David. And you would also be quite flexible.
Yes, you would. Oh, you got me on that one. But we avoid it. I avoided it for the majority of my life, but I tell you, no longer. I just don't see the reason for it. And part of what I do, just as a nonprofit consultant, is I have to tell leaders, they'll tell me a problem with their staff, or a problem with their employees, or a problem with their donors. And my response is always the same. What did they say when you brought it back up to them? Oh my gosh, no, we've never talked about it. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Go and talk. Don't waste a minute. As a matter of fact, we can hang up this phone call right now, and you go and make it clear. Call me back after you've had the conversation and just say, and there's a way to talk to people. Hey, here's what you said. I might say to you, Jason, I know what you said. I'm not sure what you meant, but can I tell you what I heard? Here's what I heard you say. And then you would say, oh my God, in a million years, I didn't mean that. If that's what you heard, that's not what I meant. And so it's just clarifying. I know what you said, but here's what I heard. Now, is what I heard what you really said? And you might say 1000%. Absolutely. And I could say, you know what, Jason, I thought I was offended. I wasn't sure about it. Now I am offended. I'm sure.
And you're an a-hole. And you're an a-hole, and I'm taking my ball and I'm going home.
So confrontation for me is not hard. It's not hard. And I know why it's hard, because I lived the majority of my life making it hard. And I find a lot of the people in the world, that's something they've already decided I don't like and I'll never enjoy.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's inside my comfort zone now. It's not hard for me to clarify. It really is not hard. That's
perfect. I'm also somebody who has no problem with that, mostly because I've been trained in the power of the benefit of it, but also what you said as a coach, one of the as a professionally trained coach, one of the things that you take a look at, removing your ego, showing up as curious, even when it's confrontational, will have you see outside of your own context, your own thoughts, feelings, and opinions and assessments. And the thing that you said, that's a really easy place to go for anybody listening who, and like you said, I believe the majority of the population doesn't like confrontation. So maybe David and I can give you a little gold here. Is may I, and this is what I would say in a coaching session. Hey, David, can I offer to you how that landed for me? Yes. It landed for me like you're really upset with, I'm just going to make this up. You're really upset with your coworker over this thing, and you actually don't want to work with them anymore. Oh, no, that's not, no. Yes, I'm upset, but no, I don't want to work with them because, and I am very notorious in this because I'm a real external processor. I'll say stuff and my coach will come back and go, hey, it landed like this. Will be like, whoa, yeah, I can see where that landed. That is not what I meant. And it actually takes, the, what's the word? The power out of the confrontation.
It does.
And moves it to clarification. Be like, hey, like,
doesn't it?
Yeah, that's cool.
And the closer you can do it to that event, the better it is. And the longer you wait, the more that thing grows and it becomes larger. And then it's like, you really cannot trust your brain. Your memory you rehearse it in your mind and it gets, it's like, the look on their face, I remember how it wasn't just it was how. It just gets larger in your mind. Honestly, if you have that kind of situation, the best thing you do, if I'm talking to you now and you're listening to this podcast, cut it off, put it on pause, pick up the phone, go to the next office, just clarify it. Don't let it go one more minute. Just clarify it.
Well, and that's why for crime scenes, they want to interview people immediately because we are reliable to interpret, assess, judge, make up our own stories about, the guy was 6'4" and 6'4" with a red hoodie on. And then somebody was like, no, it was a woman. She was 5'2" with a white t-shirt, like, because we're liable to that. And I'm just going to say this before I ask you the next question. My guess is, as a pastor, you have seen this fester inside of churches more times than you can count. I mean, I grew up going to church and I think churches might be some of the worst places for this, where somebody doesn't like a set.
I've said this often and I'll say it to you, and I can talk about them because I've given my whole life and I've been one, but some of the sickest people in this world are in the helping profession, nobody more than pastors.
Yeah.
We get into that role because we just want to be a peace keeper rather than a peacemaker. And it's one of the biggest things that keep the size of your church small. And the average size of church in America is 75 people or under.
Wow.
Churches exist for hundreds of years and some of them never go over 50 people because the leadership there just can't be honest. And when you cloak that in religion and you quote a Bible verse behind it, it gets hard it's just I don't know, gosh, what we do is we just leave the place. All of us have been in so many churches. It's amazing, but it's exactly right. That's nowhere more manifest than in the Christian ministry, I know, and in church, because pastors won't confront.
Yeah.
People won't confront. There's this cloak of religion. But honestly, if you're a follower of Jesus, you'll find nobody more plain spoken, nobody who just went right to the heart of matter than he. So
best coach ever. Best coach, and best
the guy was awesome.
And best fundraiser ever.
The guy was awesome.
All right, David. So let's take a look at the other side of this question. And we know that what's inside of your comfort zone is confrontation. So on the other side of this question, I'd love to hear about something that is actually outside of your comfort zone that might be inside of somebody else's. So what do you got for us?
Sure. I live with this every day, and I contrast myself with my daughter, who was born in an online world. I was not. But somehow online interactions for me cause me anxiety, and I don't know why. You yourself have even coached me here. It is tough for me to think about selling a class online or selling a course online. And yet I know this is where I have to go. We are in a digital world. And for me to think that I'm going to exist and be successful as a coach, as a nonprofit coach and a fundraiser, for me to think I'm going to exist outside of the digital world is foolish. I can't. So I don't know why. Jason, you can analyze me. This is probably pie for you. You sell all day long and it means nothing. What is my problem? I'm afraid of Facebook Live. My daughter, I was just watching her. She'll go on. She's on Instagram. She's on the new platform Clubhouse. She's got friends. She's got relationships. She has clients. She's everywhere. It means nothing to her to go online and she's, yep, I went on, I did that class and nobody showed up. It doesn't mean a thing to her. You know what she does? Schedules that class again, goes another time and another day. Me, I sit around and I just analyze it. You know why nobody came to my class? Because I'm no good, because I have nothing to offer. Do you know what I'm saying? And all of that self-talk is just, I'm filled with that. And I'm confessing it to you because I want to be free of it. I want to be free of it. I'm not comfortable in our digital world as a new generation is. It's something I have to never stop working at it. I'm uncomfortable just thinking about doing this podcast with you, but it's the world I have to go forward in. I have to conquer this, Jason.
This is what I get paid to do, is make people uncomfortable. So I'm glad you're here with me. But David, you know, what strikes me as so interesting about this is you were saying this, and no, I'm not going to coach you about this here. We can talk outside of the podcast. What's so interesting to me about this is you're a great speaker and you're used to being in front of people. A lot of the times the fear is more around like, people are scared to be seen. I don't think that's actually your thing. You're not afraid to be seen. I don't think.
You know, I pastored. I started when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And when I quit in 2018, our church was the largest ministry in this region. I preached to thousands of people. I did it every week.
Right.
But I'll be honest with you, Jason, I never got to the point that I said, I can't wait to do this. I have friends that believe they're called by God and they're like, I'll do this if only 2 people show up. And I just think, not me. If only 2 people show up, that's all I need to go. I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. I did it successfully. I think I must have done it well, but I never got to the place that I said, I love this and I want to do it till the last breath I take. I never loved it. I never have. So I don't know. How does that make sense?
So perfect. This is a perfect example of what Gay Hendricks, who wrote The Big Leap, is talking about. You are in your zone of excellence. You get up, you're comfortable with it. You know how to do it. You're quite good. If I was in your congregation, but hey, David's a great pastor. He's good at it. And it's the thing that you are good at, but the thing that we're put on this earth here for, according to him, and whether you believe it's, through a God or just a spirit, or whether you believe we're just, like
the universe,
whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. The philosophy is that there is something that we are put on earth here to do that is outside of the thing that we're good at. That's the thing that we're just unbelievable at. And this is what he talks about. And the upper limit problem you probably had if I had to guess, I'm doing a little pseudo
Yeah,
coaching
go for it,
therapy
Jason.
here.
Go
Yeah.
for it,
The thing,
Jason.
the upper limit problem, with that is because you were good at it, but you didn't love it, is what I'm hearing. The upper limit problem you probably put in place is, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I know how to do. And there's a lot of, and also one of the upper limit problems we all do is justification. But I have a lot of people relying on me. Like, what are they going to do without me? So this is,
and plus you live in a world of expertise. What are you going to do if you don't do that? And I was faced with that. But if I don't do this, I sure don't want to sell insurance. I have friends with car lots. I don't want to sell cars.
Right.
Dear God, what will I do? And so it's tough. I'm telling you, pastors, I'm sure it's for someone they could be mega successful selling insurance, but they didn't really like it all. It's the same for all of us. Stepping away from what you are good at, you studied to be good at, you've worked, you've practiced, you've given your whole life. Stepping away from that it's like stepping off the edge of a blimp and that thing's way high in the air. It's like, I'm just going to step off and trust that somebody's going to catch me here. You're
like, wait, this parachute's not working. I see somebody down there with a net. I'm hoping that net works.
It's hard, Jason. It's really difficult. Now, I have done it. I haven't reached the place that I can say I've arrived anywhere yet, but I did step off. I knew this was something I wanted to do. I came to the place that I realized I don't want to do what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And I am gifted. I am talented. I do have a world of expertise. I do have things I'm good at, and I just want to move towards them. It was a stretch to believe that I could ever get paid for it. That was the hardest thing. So what I did, Jason, I started out and I just did it for free. It's the truth.
Upper limit problem. I don't believe I can get paid for it, and it isn't my zone of genius. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do it for free because, it's not in my, I'm not quite sure it's my zone. And again, I'm just literally
ripping what I did. Yeah. That's what I did. I went to the next city and I met the guy who run the United Way campaign. And I said, I want to help you. And I'm in your price range. Wink, wink. Trust me when I tell you, I'm in your price range.
What's your budget for this? He's like, we don't have a budget. I'm like, we can cover that. That's awesome, David. I want to thank you for your vulnerability on this. And I think it's actually a really important topic, and we'll cover this a little bit more. All right, David, we're going to talk about public speaking next, which you've spent, sounds like thousands of hours doing, to be my guess, more than you would like. Or maybe you liked all of it. Probably not all of it, as you just said. But what if I was to be able to give you the David Oakes 5-minute TED Talk? And I'm going to challenge you here that this TED Talk is going to go on online and be broadcast digitally. You're like, oh no. So it's going to be it's a speech that the whole world is going to get to see, and we'll translate it and everybody can read it. They can read the transcript. What would you talk about, and what would be your call to action for us? And I think this is perfect. As a former pastor, like the call to action is kind of like the thing. You can preach at people for 30 minutes, and you're like, and I'm done. You're like, what do you want me to do with this, Pastor? So what would you want us to do with this? What do with your speech?
My speech would be that if you have a dream in your heart, that is God trying to let you know what he wants you to do and what you are put on this earth to do. And as you already said, the God, the universe, the power, whatever, if you have a dream in your heart, it is there for a purpose. A lot of people live with their dreams and they're tormented by them. Their dreams torment them. You don't have a dream in your heart because something wanted to torment you. You live with a dream and then die that it never happens. That's not why you have it. A dream is something that is almost impossible. A dream is something that almost could never happen, but there is this chance that maybe it would. That's what a dream is. A dream is intoxicating. A dream fuels you. If I had to live in a mud hut and live in poverty to accomplish my dream, I would still choose it because get up every day set on fire with purpose is something that is priceless. Why would you prostitute yourself to work a job to get a check and then throw your dream away? So if you have a dream on the inside of you, it is there for a purpose. That is the universe saying you were not put here to live a meaningless life. You were put here to impact the world. I say kick history in its sides.
I love that.
You were put here to make a difference. You were put here to right some injustice. You were put here to fill in some gap that if you don't do it, it won't get done. I'm a person of faith. I've been a Christian pastor, and forever in church, I always heard the old timers would say something like, well, if you don't do what God's called you to do, he'll just leave you and go get somebody else to do it. And I've come to learn that is so not true. If you don't do what you were put here to do, it may not get done at all. It's not like, well, he'll just get somebody else. The universe will just hop over you and find somebody else. No. That thing might not happen at all. So you don't have a dream inside of you. And if you got a dream, it goes all the way down into your DNA. It's part of why you're motivated. It motivates the way that you see everything. It's colored glasses. It changes the way you see the world. If you have a dream, you must act upon it. My CTA, my call to action would be, number one, just accept that premise that that thing is in you. And maybe it's not just you being crazy. Maybe
I love that.
Maybe it's divine. Maybe it is larger than you. And really the first step is just believe that. And when you believe it, when you just start believing, this is not stupid, this is not crazy, maybe this is mine to do, then watch, because things start coming together. And I'm fond of an old Chinese saying, and I always say this is not in the Bible to my Christian friends, but it ought to be. And that is, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Yep.
When the student's ready, I'm telling you, when you're ready to hear, someone will show up to say what you need to hear. When you're ready to act, someone will show up and they will give you at least one next step. And if you say, but how do I get from here to way over there? Don't worry about way over there. Yep. You go as far as you can see. Maybe that's one step. Just go as far as you can see. And I'm here to tell you, it's the truth. When you get to that spot, you'll see a little bit further. Totally. If you're on the top of a mountain and you see the next mountain, the only way to get to the next mountain is don't forget on the mountaintop or in the valley what you saw on the mountaintop. Just keep going. And when don't make a decision in the valley, just make that next step. So if you'll start believing this is in me because I'm supposed to act upon it, that is a step. And I'm telling you, I'm a person of faith. I'm a firm believer in God. I believe in a higher power. You believe it. Just believe that and watch how the right people will show up in your life and go, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I have the same dream and I've been looking for someone to partner with.
Totally.
If you're thinking, I don't have the money, somebody will show up and go, son or ma'am, I've been waiting. I've got a pile of money and I've just been waiting for somebody to show up and speak this dream. Don't worry about the money. I got it. Listen, these things happen, but it starts with you first believing this that's in my heart that I just can't get away from. It's there for a divine reason and a purpose. And I always say, if it's divine, it grows on you. If it's last night's pizza, you'll think it's amazing in the morning. And about a week later, you'll think maybe not. About a month later, you'll think definitely not. And 6 months or a year later, you'll say, I'm so thankful I didn't act on that stupid thought. But if it's divine, Jason, it grows, grows, grows. I'll think it in the morning. I'll think it in 6 months. In a year's time, I'll still be journaling about it. In 5 years, I'll say, I just can't stop. I can't leave this thing. And that's usually when so many people are ready, finally ready to say, I don't care what it costs me. This is divine. I believe it. And now, and I did that. I've done that over and over. I've just said, God, I don't know how to do this, but if you send the right people, and if you are who I think you are, and if you're real, you'll do this. And when they show up, I'm going to say yes. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to jump headlong into it. So my 5-minute speech would be, you have a dream.
You have a dream.
You have a dream. That would be my speech. And you have to act upon it. You must believe it and act upon it. That'd be my speech, Jason.
I love that, David. I want to wrap up with this. I have a thing in coaching, and you know this, I'm sure you do this in your fundraising work. It's goal setting. And sometimes you're doing very tactical goals. Like, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And that's generally going to be a little more tactical conversation. But when you're working with especially with the new clients, like, hey, what do you actually want? Like, oh, I want a new job. Like, well, what does that give you access to? It's like, it's like getting elevation outside of like just the thing. What I will sometimes say is when they hit a point where they run out of their dream, I'll say, well, how are you going to do that? And they'll give me a strategy. I'll go, perfect, not big enough. Because what I hear, because what I'm hearing for you is the thing that is missing in strategy is faith and hope.
It matters.
And it matters. And I'm not even speaking like faith of hope in terms of religious context. Just the faith is, I believe faith is defined as believing in something without knowing the how. And in coaching, this is what we're always looking at is, there's a lot of how-tos and all this stuff, and I'm here to support you. And if you actually know how to do it and you've got a strategy for getting exactly what you want, you're likely not going to be happy. So I'll just give you a quick example of this. Okay, so I know that I want to go, and I'm just going to use a random example. I know that I want to go into banking. And I'm in high school, and I'm like, okay, so to go and work at the bank that I want to go into, investment banking, I'm going to need to get really good grades in high school, which means I'm going to need to go to like, I really want to go to an Ivy League school. Then I'm going to need to get my MBA. And then I'm going to get my MBA. I'm going to get out, and then I'm going to get the internship that I want. And then I'm going to get that job that I want. And then you talk to most of those people, not all, they're not living their dream because they have a strategy and getting exactly where they want to go. And that's also to say, like, I'm not somebody who's like banking, this is not about banking. Like, there's amazing work that gets done there, and it powers everything we do, including fundraising. But I think the thing for the audience to think about, and what I heard in your speech too, is if you know the how to, you might not be thinking big enough. And a dream is also usually not a how to. It's a feel thing. It's a gut thing. It's not a strategy. It's not, dreams aren't going to land in your head. You're not gonna be like, well, I have this dream and I've been thinking about this dream. It's going to like land inside of you without the brain part generally. At least that's how dreams are for me. So that's what I got for you.
I totally agree. And you just summarized what I said. Exactly. And if you know what you're doing, that's not a dream. That's called something you can do.
That's a strategy.
A dream is something that, unless providence intervenes, it'll never happen.
Right.
It can't happen. It's so large.
Yeah. Very nice, David. Well, we're going to take a really brief commercial break, and we'll be right back after this. David, we are back. So next question I have for you. What would you like the audience to know about you?
This is about my journey, Jason. And I think I am very defined by my journey through my childhood to where I am now. I'm 60 years old now. But I had a painful childhood. We put the dis in function. I've heard comedians say that in our family. Our family was very dysfunctional. My extended family, we come from dysfunction. So I was raised in a very dysfunctional home, and that just leads to a lot of pain. I didn't feel celebrated by my dad, and that just led to not a good relationship. As a young man, I just depended on my mom. As a young man, she was in a plane crash. She went Christmas shopping, she and her husband and their plane, and crashed their plane. That I had always struggled with depression all of my life. And so in 1999, she, 3 days before Christmas, 2 days on the 23rd of December, she was in a plane crash and my life spiraled out of control. All the pain of my childhood, all the many years of my struggling with depression, it all just came to crash all at once. And for about somewhere between 2 and 3 years, I cried, but I went to counseling and I went to therapy and I examined my childhood and I look back on and I reinterpret everything that I lived through as a child from an adult's point of view, and things that I had blamed myself for, I stopped and forgave myself. I forgave God, all my people. I forgave my dad. So I call myself a student of pain, Jason. I am defined by the struggle that I went through. And it's now made me who I am. I live having a heart for people who hurt. I fundraise. The people that I meet and help them fundraise, they're helping the most, let me say, helpless people. They're helping the marginalized. I've not met anyone leading a nonprofit that wasn't doing something so wonderful and amazing. So somehow I see myself in all those people that are being served through that nonprofit and through my helping them to get all the money they need and a little bit more. So I am defined by struggle. I'm defined. My life. I am a student of pain. And now I give my whole life to helping to relieve the world of its pain, helping to right injustices, helping to stand in the gap, helping to do what needs to be done. So that's my journey from a child all the way to today is struggle. Struggle's how we grow. Struggle is how we learn. Pain is how we overcome. One of the greatest teachers in the universe is pain. We laugh through our joys, but when pain comes, we listen. So, I'll come from a poverty background. We were very poor. I was the first one to ever go to college, and I did that at 30 years old. I went at 30 years old, my first day of class, to study psychology. And I can say, well, because I want to help people. I want to tell you why I got that psychology degree. I wanted to try to help myself. I'm not sure it helped any at all. After it took me almost 10 years to get the thing, I look back and went, oh my gosh, I'm still, I didn't get the answers I needed, which all of my teachers would say.
There's a good example of, you had a strategy for your dream, and when you didn't get what you wanted.
I did. So my journey is a journey of struggle, pain, depression, aloneness. That's my story that I live every day. Still to this day, I'm affected. I think I'm 60-year-old. When will I just say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. My childhood and my dad and our relationship. But he's gone now. I'm 60 years old. And to this day, I still have to deal with that. I'm affected by that. I'll always walk with a little bit of a limp. I just want to try to make sure I'm limping forward and using it in a good way. So that is my story. It is a story of pain and hurt and wound and struggle. And now the way I get redemption is I'm helping to relieve as much of that as I can. That is redemption for me. I cannot change my childhood, but I can help others out of theirs. I can help children and young people and young men. And that's what I've given my life to.
Great, David. Well, thanks for that. That's it's very inspiring. I have a lot of questions, but I'm actually not gonna ask them here because I'm wildly fascinated by this. And in the interest of time and some of the other things I want to ask you about, I'm actually going to give you the microphone, my friend. You also have a podcast, I believe, a newly formed podcast, or you're coming out with one soon. And so I'm going to give you the host rights here on my podcast. So how generous of me. I'm giving you through Zoom, I'm handing him I don't know what you call it, the host trophy or the host control. And you can ask me something that I'll answer for you and answer for the audience. And I have no idea what's coming. So David, what do you want to ask me that I can spend a few minutes on for you?
Well, Jason, I think you've given your life as a coach, and you're good at selling. And as you said earlier, there's never a time when we're not selling ourselves. We all are. We're constantly marketing ourselves. We always are. So if you're hearing my story and my struggles, you know somewhat about my position and where I'm at. I'm a new entrepreneur in the marketplace. So to grow myself in this world, where do I need to start? And give me a little bit of a path. Help me down that path as an entrepreneur and a marketer.
Yeah,
I'm an old pastor, a Christian pastor. Help me.
This is perfect. I'll save you. You just got to go fully digital. Go all out. Get out. Jump out. Go jump into the deep end.
That was easy.
Yeah, that's it. I'll send you my invoice later today. No, the thing that I see for you is it's a really good question. What I see for your superpower that I don't know this for sure, but our friend Mike Kim, who we both know in common, is a big fan of authenticity in marketing. And I don't know this for sure, David, but my impression is that my impression / assessment, which could be completely wrong, is that part of the reason you resist the digital stuff is because you don't find it authentic to you. There's something inauthentic about it to you. Is that fair to say? Or
that might be true, because it's just a bunch of salesmen hawking.
Right.
It's the used car guy. He's just now on the internet.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, and this is a very, very common thing for, I think, people that are like, I view myself, and I certainly view you. Certainly, I view myself, but I certainly view you. I view us both as like legitimate people out there doing really good work, and we know that. And I understand the context of, in this space, there is a lot of noise. And what I mean by this space is there's other people who are nonprofit leaders, coaches, people that serve nonprofits. There's a million coaches to do a million things. And quite frankly, I see some of it as great. I put 3 categories in, or maybe there's 4. And I'm curious what you think about this. So there is I'm going to put us in the same category, and I'm going to relate to you as a coach for now, right? You're like, you do nonprofit work, but you actually coach leaders in nonprofits on how to do better fundraising, more fundraising. And I know you also do a lot of consulting work too, but just for the purposes of this little thing, I'm going to simplify your role so it's the same as mine. There are people who are really, really good at what they do with a lot of training, a lot of experience. They make a big impact on their customers, and they also have good marketing, good sales, good marketing. So they have kind of a holistic thing. There are others who make a big impact for the customers, have a lot of expertise, a lot of training, a lot of things. They have bad marketing and or no marketing, and they don't know how to sell themselves. And then I think there's a third category of people who I think you know what's coming here, who don't have the training, don't have expertise, don't really know what they're talking about, but they've recognized that there's a market out there that they want to sell into because it's ripe for the picking. They're not good at what they do. They have good sales and marketing. So my assertion is that you don't want to be perceived as the last one there. And so the thing I would have for you to consider, because I don't actually have a how-to for you. So what's beautiful about coaching is we don't have to know the how-to all the time. The thing I would have you consider, like if you were my actual client, I would probably offer to you the context that you're in is something about value and authenticity. And without coaching you fully through this, I'm not sure what it is. But in our current context, we will consistently build strategies, and we will look for ways to fix that context. And when we fix the context, we actually perpetuate it. So I'll give you an example and tell me if this resonates. So you are struggling with how to grow your business, and you've been told that you should go out and do digital in some way, shape, or form. And it's scary for you. So you somehow figure out how to fix that and make it less scary by courses. You said it, courses, leaning into it. Those are all good things. And there are also fixes for your current context to have you no longer believe that it's scary or no longer not want to do it. And what will likely happen to you at some point, if it hasn't happened already, is you will do all the fixes and then you won't get the result you want. And then you'll just be more in the context of like, oh, well, like now my value, I'm still that thing. So the thing that I would have for you if you're my client would be to look to coach you or look to elevate the conversation of like, well, David, what if you were already authentic and could provide value? What would you go and create? What would be authentic to you? What would be the thing that you'd want to actually share outside of the how-to that would have you feeling like you were doing what you're supposed to be doing? And then at the end of the session, I'd say, all right, so when are you going to do it? And then you might go, what? You probably hear this in non-profits all the time. Yeah, David, that's a great idea. I should take that to the committee and we should talk about it for the next 6 months. And what's beautiful about doing one-on-one coaching work is to say, well, what about now? What about like, if you're like, hey, like, you know what, I need to wrap up that course that I've recorded. All I need to do is upload it to my platform and it's ready to go. When do you want to do that by? Yeah, I could probably get to next few weeks. What about now? What about tomorrow? And actually standing for your client, because this is as coaches and again, relating to you, this is what you do for nonprofits, is standing for them to do the thing they're unreliable to do themselves.
Yes.
Because I don't have the context you have. I have my own context and I have plenty of them, but I don't have the context you have. So I'm your client, or I'm your coach. I get to stand outside of your belief system, outside of your belief system, outside of your mindset. And I get to be outside of that. And that's actually like when people are like, well, what does coaching do for me? And I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. That's not what I do. I stand for people outside of their own
coaching.
That's not really coaching. And yes, I can do some consulting with you and I have some ideas for you, but that would be consulting. Like, hey, David, you might want to try X, Y, and Z. Or, hey, David, try, or real consulting is, hey, David, do X, Y, and Z. Here's a system I have for you. So that's what I would offer to you as coach is, what would you take on that would be outside of your context of the context you're currently in? And I don't know exactly what your context is. So that's what I have for you. And you're probably like, that didn't give me what I wanted.
No, you're challenging me, actually. You're challenging me. And I love it. It's what I need. Yeah. You're a good coach. A good coach.
I appreciate it. Just to let the audience know that, I paid David a few bucks ahead of time. He said, I'm going to ask you this exact question. And I said, okay, great. I'll send you $5 on Venmo. Make sure you say it at the end of everything. This is all, speaking of sales and marketing, this is just all one big rigged. This is all like one big right now. We're not making this up on the fly. That's great, David. Well, thank you for the question. I hope that was valuable. And of course, you know that I'm available to talk to you outside of the podcast.
Yes. And thank you. Thank you. You're in my corner and that means a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Well, David, what are you passionate about besides fundraising?
Well, my fundraising supports a passion that I have for helping the marginalized. And I mentioned that just a little bit, just a moment ago. Many years ago now, I began to mentor. I was invited to mentor kids in the elementary system, and they would always give me these kids that are at risk. I don't know if they say that anymore, but it used to be at-risk kids.
I think so.
So I started mentoring these at-risk young African-American boys, and it just led to so much in my life. And just meeting with them, I fell madly in love with them. They fell in love with me. The majority of them are the ones that we hit it off together. They never knew their father. And so I became the only dad they've ever known. And so from years ago, just little guys, some of them I actually took and raised in my own home. And so I
Nice.
have raised, yes, little African American boys. They're nothing like me. And for
Yeah.
them, it was a big dive into a white world that they did not had never been in, and for me, it was a dive into a black world that I had never been in. So,
Yeah.
I championed them. I met all their teachers. I raised them. I fed them. I bought them school clothes every year. They celebrated. They lived with me, and I raised them. And then on a trip to the Middle East, I fell in love with Palestinian people, and I fell in love with the Palestinian kids who were struggling. And so that led me, it's not something I think I was chosen for it, but I never dreamed I'd be doing it. But now I have my own nonprofit, and we're planting and starting an English immersion school with Palestinians there in Bethlehem. And they're so totally different from me in every way. And I'm their champion now. And so I raise money. We're starting their school, but I am passionate about people who are marginalized, because I think all of my life I felt like I was marginalized. So I have a voice, I have ability, and I have influence, and I'm passionate about speaking up for those who are pushed to the side, especially my boys. I have a handful of boys, and holidays are awesome because they all come here and we play games, and I grill and feed them, and now they're getting their girlfriends and getting married, and oh my gosh, I have a whole wonderful family of color that I never dreamed I'd have. But I've lived my life championing and just being passionate about giving them what they never had, the opportunities. And so anyway, I'm passionate about the marginalized. And those
That's
are
really
two
beautiful,
groups of
David.
people that I've given my life to.
Yeah. And I follow you on Instagram, and it's funny, we're talking about digital. I see these pictures, and I've been meaning to ask you, like, who are all these people? Because you kind of allude to it sometimes in your captions, but you never fully flesh it out.
They're
So
my
this is really
boys. They're my boys.
Yeah.
I raised them. I
Yeah.
raised them.
Cool. So I just want to give you a plug, which is ironic, and I want to actually say for those listening who your Instagram is really touching, and I see these pictures of you all doing things and your dinners, and I'm glad that I finally found out who all these people are, because I see them like, hey, like, and I was curious if those are in the home, if they're somewhere else, but now I have an answer. Very cool, David.
They're half grown. My youngest son, my youngest boy, is in his second year of college, and I'll like look up to the sky and wink and say, I'm not raising anymore, wink wink, because they always say, don't say what you're not going to do, because that's what you'll end up doing. Sometimes I'm not saying I'm not raising anymore. Oh goodness, I hope he's the last one that I have to raise.
You know what, I will what I will do is I will watch the grandbabies. You say yes. As they get older and get married and have their own families, like, I will hang out with the grandbabies, but I will not be the primary
Yes.
caregiver anymore.
They call me their dad. I'm the only dad they've ever known, and all of their lives almost for us to go out. We live in the South. We live in South Georgia. To go out, and we've just been places, and they'll call out, Dad, would you do whatever? And the whole place turns, and nobody more than the black culture going, did you just call him dad? That is not your dad. And it's like, and they'll get mad, like, the hell he's not. That's my dad. Excuse me. Like, so, it has been awesome. I think I've been embraced, but I don't know the people who have said, I can't handle that guy in my life. I say that I became a missionary right here in South Georgia. I never left my town, and I become a missionary to a people group that I did not understand, that's so unlike me, spoke a language I didn't understand. I became a missionary right here in my own town here in South Georgia.
That's amazing, David. That's really inspiring. Well, this kind of leads me to the next question, which is, what's the thing you're most proud of? And I'm curious if it's more along these lines, if you got something else, or if this you already answered. I feel like you may have already answered this question.
I'm proud of my boys. I'm proud of my boys. I've one that's in University of Georgia, and he is about to finish his 4-year degree, and he's being offered all these fellowships to do his master's degree. He'll go on and before he's done, he will be Dr. Wilson, Dr. Savante. I'm proud of my guys. One of my boys is a master tech at one of the local new car dealer agencies. And all through school, in high school, he went to high school half a day and he went to the tech school. And when he was in grade 11, the tech school gave him awards. He beat everybody out. Like, he was the most outstanding student. All he ever dreamed about was getting greasy and fixing cars. I said, then you're going to go to school and you're going to fix cars like nobody ever did. I'm so proud of my guys. I'm proud of them on my Instagram. I'm proud just everywhere I go. I'm proud to be their dad. I am proud to be their dad. I'm the only dad they've ever known, and I'm their dad.
Yeah,
I'm proud of them.
Cool.
I sure am.
Yeah. Well, I would hope that you'll share this episode with them. They'll get a chance to listen. I'm sure this will be very touching for them to hear that, or maybe a little embarrassing. So I won't ask you for their names unless you want to share that with us, their first names, but you certainly don't have to.
Well, there's Scooby, and that's not the name I give him. That came from they said his grandmother called him that when he was 5 minutes old. But there's Fidarian, there's Chris, there's Savante, there's Seth, there's Jermaine. My goodness, the most amazing, beautiful kids. Men, they're men now, and they have their own children, right? Some of them. They're men now. I love them like crazy. I do.
Yeah, that's so cool. All right. Question about you. And I'm going to take one thing off the table after I ask it of it. What's something that you were afraid might actually be true about you? And I'm going to take off the table the digital marketing technology stuff, because we already know that's
because you already fixed me on that. Gosh, that's in the past.
We don't fix our clients and we support them in their growth. But David, what's something else that you're afraid might actually be true about you?
I think I might be passive aggressive. I'm afraid that might be true. I pride myself in being open. I pride myself in being real. I pride myself in being authentic. I pride myself in that if I have something to say to you, you don't have to wonder about it. I'll tell you. You don't have to wonder about me. You can live with confidence. But I don't know, passive aggressive is a way that you can, I don't know, something about you sort of eating on me. And I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to have a conversation about it. But in our joking or our kidding and our laughing, I'll find a way to just put a little jab in there. And you'll just go away going, that he's so funny. He got me, didn't he? But he was joking. Was he serious? He was joking. Was he serious? And I had a friend who was an expert at that. And he was awesome. Everybody loved him. I loved him. But I'm telling you, you could be laughing and he could just say something and the room would erupt in laughter and you'd be the biggest one laughing. And you'd think, wasn't that so funny? And then afterwards, I remember thinking, does he really? I don't know. I think he really believes that. Do you know what I'm saying? So sometimes I'm humorous. I say my love language is to pick on people. Like if I love you, I'll give you a pet name. I'll call you something. I love to pick on people. What is wrong with me? I don't know. But I wonder and I'm afraid and I want to work to make sure it's not true. But I wonder, do I have that tendency to be passive aggressive?
Yeah. Second part of the question that you don't know is coming. And you've partially answered it there, or maybe you fully answered it, but what do you do to compensate for that fear? In other words, if we're asking this in a coaching conversation or maybe even like a therapy conversation, what's a strategy you use to prove to yourself that that's not true? Because that's what said you have a psychology. That's what we do as humans, right? We believe things about ourselves that we don't like, and then we create strategies around them to prove to ourselves and to others that that's not true. So what's the strategy you use?
My goal is if I've said something and it reflects a conversation that I've not had, that I'll go and have that conversation. It's sort of like a wake up call for me. It's like, well, I didn't think that was bothering me. Well, obviously it did. Look, it came out a couple of times. So what's in you does come out. What comes out is only what is in you. It's not like, famous, pastors are, using profanity and they're like, whoa, where'd that come from? It was inside you.
Yeah, of course.
So we only speak what's on the inside. So when I find myself having said something, I just question, did I get a laugh at someone? Was it really at their expense? And I never want to live that way. Yeah. And I don't do it intentionally. As I said, that is something that I fear sometimes, that it may be true, that maybe I would throw a little jab at you in a laughing, kidding, lighthearted way that reflects something that I should be talking about. So my way to deal with that is just to ask myself, but because it comes up, whoa, is that an issue? Is that an issue? Did that come out because you should have already brought it up, but you haven't?
So just to wrap on this, is it fair to say, David, that so we heard the thing that you're afraid might actually be true about you is that you're at a deep level, you're passive aggressive. Isn't it fair to say that the strategy you use to compensate for that is you lean into confrontation now?
If you were a consultant, you'd be telling me that's what I've done. But since you're a coach, you're asking me. So I'd say yes, that's probably the way I compensate for that.
Yeah.
And, I never really put two and two together, but in a formal way. Yeah, you're a great coach. Yeah,
thank you.
That's the role of a great coach.
Yeah, well, and just I've said this to other guests. It's the compensating part is not a bad thing. It's just how we as humans operate. Nobody's ever asked me this question, but hint, if any of my future guests ask me this question, I will answer it. And I've had to take a look at like, oh, I believe that to be true about myself. What do I do to compensate for it? It's just the way we're built. It's the way and it's not a bad thing. And I think that's, but that's also an example of, like taking a look at am I afraid that I'm passive aggressive? It's a compensation thing, but it's also a way to address it and to lean out of your comfort zone into your zone of excellence.
I hope that's true. Yeah. I hope that's true, Jason. It's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But you lean into the thing that's actually uncomfortable for you, which is at the end of the day, at a base level is a strategy, but it can be a really powerful strategy. Is like, and strategies are fantastic. We all need strategies. It's like, hey, I've recognized this thing about myself psychologically. And like you said, you've got a therapy and counseling and all those things. So the thing you can do is like, hey, how do I actually build a structure around this to have me work on this? It's not just going to be me going to a therapist once a week, but I'm going to lean in. What I heard for you at the beginning is you lean into the discomfort, which is a great strategy for getting outside of the thing that you believe to be true about you. And the beautiful thing about the thing that you believe to be true about you is you will let all of us, or I hate to stereotype, but for me, at least, it's the thing I'm going to believe about me no matter what. Like I'm always going to believe there's a part of you that's going to say, I'm passive aggressive. And there's no amount of fixing it or strategy that's not going to have a small part of you be like, oh God. It's like the thing at some point that is like your demon, that at some point you just laugh and like the demon becomes a little imp and you're just like, yeah, there it is. Like, I know that it's always going to be part of me.
And I don't want to believe that. And so long as I do follow through and make that a conversation, it helps me to believe it's not true.
That's right. Yeah. All right. We're going to wrap up here in a couple minutes and love to hear, David, how you see the world. So the question I have for you is just that, like, how do you see the world?
I see the world as filled with people who are just like me. And I do believe this. We're all insecure and we're all looking for validation on some level. All of us, we're all looking for love. And in some places and in some areas, all of us are in pain, more or less, in different spaces and places in our lives. So if we'll live our lives to validate people will never live an unsuccessful day, because you'll always bump into someone who needs validation. When I go somewhere to eat, I always, I didn't always, but I've grown into a pretty good habit of it. When someone comes to wait on me and they tell me their name, hi, my name is Mike and I'm your server today. I always remember that name. I meet a lot of people and I don't remember their names, but when you're serving me, I always grab and I will say your name between 5 and 10 times before we leave. Thank you, Mike. Oh, Mike. Yeah. And Mike, did you say, Mike, would you recommend? Mike, do you think you could bring us some more of this? I call their name because calling someone by their name, Jason, is validating. And that is, it's so powerful when we just call people by their name. I do that because I think we're all waiting to be validated. We all live every day waiting for someone to help us to believe that living this day was worth it. We're all looking for a little bit of that affirmation and love. I think the world's filled. I believe everybody I meet, if I went and heard you and you were speaking to 10,000 people, if I had your cell phone number, if it was good, I would already think when you got through, even if it was a standing ovation, I would think, you know what? Jason is questioning himself about some of the things that he said. I'm going to text you and go, dude, you hit it out of the park. Everywhere I'm going today in this big, large city, people are talking about your speech. I would do that. I do that for people. I do it all the time. Hey, when I leave and my server, I always leave a tip and I say, awesome job. Hey, pass it on to the cook too. Today was awesome. And you know what? If you start out, I would say almost always, I always get great service because I treat people with that kind of respect and dignity. So I believe the world is filled with people who are looking for affirmation and validation. And if we'll just catch them doing something good, catch them doing something right, validate it, I think if we all did that, this world would be a much better place. It is in truth how I see the whole world. It's everybody I meet.
I think I just had an epiphany of what one of your superpowers is. You have the superpower in helping people to feel seen.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, helping people to feel seen. And I'm just doing my own formula in my head. This makes perfect sense around the nonprofit stuff, because one of the things that nonprofits struggle with is being seen, right? Like that's that they don't have big marketing budgets, don't have big advertising budgets, don't have PR, but I mean, yes, the big ones do. Of course, United Way seems like they have a lot of money, or at least they used to, and they advertise on football games all the time. But but I think that just goes back to, again, and I keep harping on it, like your zone of genius is liking having people feel seen. And and that's also
a large part of that has to do with saying thank you. Catch someone doing something good and say thank you. My daughter got caught in school. They sent her to the principal's office. They said she was caught doing good, and it's had such a wonderful effect on she and I. They caught her picking up garbage in the bathroom that she didn't put down. They wrote her up, sent her to the principal. It was an initiative that they did. They caught her doing good and said thank you. And I want to live my life catching people doing good, catching them doing an excellent job. Anytime you see excellence, it didn't happen by accident. Someone intentionally worked hard to do that well. You can say thank you. I don't care if you know them or not. So I think that's just a large part of who I am, is understanding, even if we're doing an excellent job, we need to be validated. It helps when somebody notices, so much more if they're a stranger, so much more.
Oh, yeah.
So what a powerful thing we have that we can give away.
Yeah, that's actually not a huge effort. It makes a big difference. So David, I want to wrap up today by having you share, how do people know when they should reach out to you for the kind of work you do? Like what's the sign? Like there's two questions here, actually. Let me back this up. One, who's an ideal client for you? Like what's the ideal client profile? And two, for people listening to this who work in the nonprofit world or know other people, or even if there's some for-profit work that this applies to, which, at the end of the day, it's all ancillary. How would people know, hey, it's time for me to give this David guy a call?
If you want to make a difference in this world and you need help knowing how, you know what you want to do, you know the people you want to serve, you just don't know how to take the steps, you can give me a call. We can have a conversation at least. You can get on my email list and you can devour my writings. You can listen to my podcast. And that doesn't cost you anything. And everything that I teach, that people pay me a lot of money to teach them and to consult and to help them to do, all of that I give away for free and all of my stuff. So if you're wanting to, as I say, kick history in its sides, you really want to make an impact with your nonprofit, then I'm the person. It's a great time just to initiate at least contact with me. And if we don't have a conversation, at least begin to read the materials. And if you do that, as I said, everything I charge for, I give it away for free also, just in little bite-sized chunks.
Just don't tell your clients that are paying you a lot of money. What you will not get is, as you can tell, David is a wonderful human being. They will not get the personal touch of getting a chance to actually spend the time with you, maybe be in a room with you, all that good stuff. Awesome, David. So people want to reach out to you and find you. Where do they do that? How do they connect with you?
The easiest place, honestly, is on Instagram. I love Instagram. You can find me on Facebook too, but I am really enjoying Instagram. It's just so easy. It's quick. It's just pictures. And so anyway, you can find me on Instagram, David L. Oakes. Also find me on Facebook with the same name. I'll connect with you either way. I find two different groups of people connect with me in the two different places, but those are the two main places.
So what I'm hearing, David, is if anybody wants to connect with David, just slide into his DM. I don't know if you've heard that saying before. Just slide into the DMs.
Oh, you're so cool, Jason.
I'm not. I coach a lot of cool people, so I stay up to. Now I'm dating myself too. David, last thing I have for you. I'd love to hear some words to wisdom. And those words of wisdom need to fit on a Post-it note / on an Instagram post, because you just brought up Instagram. So what do you got for us? What do you got for me? What do you got for the audience? What do you want to leave us with?
That's really easy. And I believe this with all my heart. Who you are is God's gift to you. Who you become is your gift to God. I believe that with all of my heart. You were born gifted, but who you become, you're filled with all your gifts. Who you become is your gift to God. So that's my little phrase that I love. Who you are is God's gift to you, and who you become is your gift back to God.
David, that's beautiful. Well, I am so glad we got a chance to do this. Thank you so much for spending the time with me and with the audience when they hear this. And I wish you, the boys, your daughter, the family, everything that's going on down there in Southern Georgia. I wish you the best of luck with the time zone stuff. And I guess me too. And I also need to take a hard look at whether we need to greet with my guest with a happy, a good morning or a good afternoon or a good evening anymore, because doesn't really matter.
Such things are of supreme importance, Jason, when you're a coach like you.
I'm going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm probably going to get some therapy and some coaching on this. But David, thank you so much. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you again soon.
Jason, thank you for the time. And just talking with you today over this last little while has been clarifying. You're a great coach. I'm thrilled to have you in my corner. Glad to have you in my pocket. And I'm so thankful you showed up to do what you do. Look at the people who wouldn't be helped if you didn't do what you do.
Oh, David, thank you so much for that. And again, I'll send you another $5 to your Venmo for the pitch. All right. Take care, David.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.